Hello everybody, it is me, Game Penguin 21, and today, I think in the last video I was talking about something to do with Harmon Smith, but that might have to get pushed to the side a bit more because I wanted to talk about this, which specifically has to do with PC modding. Now, I think the last time that we talked about PC modding and people having weird and strange opinions on this just so happen to be about Team Kill Media. I'm going to bring them up here again because there's a small little thing that I wanted to talk about with them, but we'll get into that in a little bit. The main topic of this video, and the main topic I'm going to be rambling on about, is twofold. Number one being the mod for PlayStation's exclusive Spider-Man 2 that recently came over to PC, where there are specifically wings of Venom that are kind of, being talked about, as well as, apparently, why, quote, the gaming media, in and of themselves, is vilifying exclusives. We'll get into that, I guess. But before we do, if you really like what it is that I do want to support me in any other way, shape, or form, links down to everything in the description below. But let's talk first about Team Kill Media and get a small little update about them. So Team Kill Media is still on their vendetta against the PC gaming market for whatever reason. And their main thing with the PC gaming market still seems to be quote-unquote mods, because it, quote, destroys the original vision of them. What's also interesting here is that they actually managed to talk and follow again onto Mr. that Generic Eric. Now, Generic Eric here is one of, if not the bigger PlayStation fanboys on Twitter, but he is also someone who apparently weaponizes people's places in their diseases to be able to console war. That screenshot. And here I am going on to the next topic, as that is not the main topic for it. Just that this is an interesting kind of segue into our main topic for Nick Tech. This was being passed around Twitter all the time. Not sure where specifically it came from, but Nick Tech here posts out, this is quite literally the best mod ever in Spider-Man 2 PC, talking about the Venom wings. Now, I talked about these, and I initially thought, oh, they're just the wings of Spawn. I'm not certain if these are actually Spawn's wings. They look like they're very heavily designed after it, but at least according to Jam Fajaro, very sorry if I butchered your name there, saying when fans know their stuff and they have what looks like a rendition of the screenshot or some sort of comic panel from Venom having Venom wings. Now, I'm not sure if this is because the symbiote at some point went and attached to Spawn and then became Venom Spawn for whatever reason, or if a specific person at sometime became a vampire or something. The specifics of this are weird. I don't know comics. I'm very sorry. I'm not a comic nerd. I'm a video game guy. So, that's very strange. But I did want to bring up that this is in fact canon to the actual things in terms of Venom and not Spawn's wings being attached to it as some people were attributing to it. But it is still pretty interesting that this sorts of mods exist. And, well, there were a lot of people out there that had some opinions on this. Starting, of course, off with Hugh Mendia, I don't know how you pronounce that, what the fuck, with this is quite literally the trashiest mod ever in Spider-Man 2 PC. A mod where you add Venom's wings to Spider-Man, who is in Venom symbiote suit, is bad and trashy. Because why? I get and I understand that there is, again, it's mods, and these mods are all optional, and they quote-unquote destroy the original vision of it. While at the same time, there is enough modding out there that you just don't need to do it. I know for a game that I'm playing, Balatro, you can mod the hell out of that game as far as I can tell. But I don't have it modded. I have it on my main Steam Deck, and I'm going through basically the amount of runs there. By the way, for anyone who really cares, I'm actually going through all of the decks in order, and I've recently beaten, I think it was the Magic deck. So I'm going in order. So I've beaten red, blue, gold, black and magic deck, all at least on white stake at this point. So again, I'm still just kind of starting out, but I find it strange how people be looking like these mods destroy the vision of the game and destroy balancing and stuff. It's like, yes, but they are optional. And again, why is it that it's just only for PlayStation games that this is like annoying when people like, I don't know, Bethesda literally encourage modding? Very strange. But next up here we have Kurt Down with bruh, all y'all doing is flying, not playing the game. Y'all not finishing missions, just flying around, lol. Ah, yes, he's not playing the game because he's showing off the mod of him playing the game. You do realize that you have to play the game in order to show off the mod, right? And that this is just a 3-minute clip of a guy showing off the modification of the game, which shows how the mod works and what it operates on, right? He's not going to show, like, him using it in combat, I guess, or something like that. Or it's a mod showcase. It's like, oh yeah, you're not showing off the actual thing. You're not actually playing the game, despite the fact that he's in game with the mod, playing it, and just showing traversal because it's, again, a mod showcase. Do you not know how a mod showcase works, my guy? Really strange. Zishan here with it's Spider-Man game, not a Venom game. You can already fly like Superman in the wind tunnels. Cool. But this is like using differently to that. And also saying that like it's quote not a Venom game when Venom does take up a very decent chunk of like the middle portion. I'm not sure of the story of the actual game, but at least the symbiote suit does tend to take up a bit of the actual game itself. And I know that some people will look at it and be like, oh, well, he's actually taking on the characteristics of Peter Parker and he doesn't actually have the wings in the official comics and blah, 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 blah. And like, that's true. And that's fine. And again, it's more just whatever the fuck's been happening. But again, it's a mod. If you don't like the mod or don't want to have the mod installed, don't do it. It's just very simple. It's also a single-player experience. Who the fuck cares? It's not like destroying someone else's experience of the game. You can do it however you want them to. Of course, for balancing purposes. And up here we have Silencer Moto saying, trash, defeat the whole game design. I mean, doesn't really defeat the whole game design because I would still say that there is ways to balance it. And I guess, again, mods sometimes do destroy game design. In some cases, maybe, but that's like saying, oh, you're going to paint your own picture or you're going to take a picture of like the Mona Lisa and then try to recreate it in a painting, but like do it in meme formats. A lot of people will look at this and be like, oh, this right here, this destroys everything that the original artist was talking about. When you literally have people who make meme edits of things like movies and things like freaking paintings, very famous paintings, mind you, and things like books where they create fan fictions and comic series. And I think the entirety of like the manhwas and anime inspirations and stuff that we have all throughout the internet, all of that's fine. All of that parody stuff, that's fine. But once you mod a video game, that's bad. It destroys everything that the person has there. And these two comments kind of sum up the main schools of the negative thoughts of this, saying PC gamers are destroying Spider-Man, and why do you have to mod the game and such? Do you buy a movie and change the actors? What about the original vision? Yeah, there is an original vision there, and people still respect the original vision. I actually think that it's a high praise of confidence if some artist out there or someone decides to make a meme edit of your actual content or your like movie or whatnot. Overall, I don't see that as an insult when you're inspiring people to make more stuff. Once you have like, I've preached for a while that modding is like the gateway entry place to making video games. A lot of mods were made and then made into video games. Examples? Simple. Squad was originally Project Reality. Project Reality was a mod of Battlefield. PlayerUnknown's Battleground. Guess what that was? A mod of Arma. Don't think it was under the same name, but it was originally an Arma mod that was then made and spun off into its own game. A lot of other people out there were talking about how they loved to mod and create things for things in the computer space, which is how they got into things like game design and IT in the first place. Other things inspire other things. If you want a really old fucking example, chess. I brought this up in the original thing, but I'll bring it up again. If you look it up, and the original Fortress and things of chess was based on a remixed, or it was based on a version of a much older game that I can't even remember the name of. Like, it happens. And that's not even talking about 3D chess or talking about the different versions of Monopoly or the different versions of other games that were remixed into other games. Quite interesting. But next up here, to talk about into the latter half of this video, to get to a more general gaming topic, we then have the gaming media is apparently demonizing exclusive games, according to Icon Era. Now, this is, again, a little bit of an older thing to be able to talk about here, but I wanted to talk about it here because it's important to the conversation, and why I think that a lot of this sort of mentality of Icon Era is a little bit dumb. So why is it that, again, the gaming media is, quote-unquote, vilifying or demonizing exclusives, or at least content creators in general? Well, because exclusivity kind of sucks for a lot of things. At least in terms of exclusivity, when it comes to things like a limited run plushie, you are still getting a physical product. I know that I personally have a lot of limited run plushies and a collection of limited run things, to which some people will be like, oh, well, those are only exclusives, so like the brand that you like. And I'm like, yes, they are. But I would still argue that the exclusivity works, at least in this context, because it only comes from a company that they're going to run it for a limited time, and it's not going to be like reprinted or whatever. Again, that's more just a personal thing, and you're still getting a actual physical product, whereas with video games, you're just using it to get software. And software itself is usually for the people, but again, it just makes no sense that if a thing can run another thing, why is it that that thing can't run on something like my computer or something like that? And that might to you seem like, oh, well, that seems very strange. It is. It's a very weird, I guess, double standard if you think about it. But when you look at the actual specifics, there is reasons for it, I guess. This is a bad example. This is probably going to get used against me in a court of law. Whatever. In any case, we're going to just look at some of the responses to this as to why people think or theorize that the actual gaming media is, quote, demonizing the exclusives. Let's get started. Michael D'Angelo here talking about how because they chose to play on a platform that doesn't have exclusives, or they aren't gamers at all, but they see a following that they feel they can manipulate. What? I don't really understand what this comment is supposed to mean, because I've read it at least 5 or 6 times at this point, and it makes very little sense if you think about it. Saying because they chose to play on a platform that doesn't have exclusive games, I guess, which, I mean, I guess Xbox doesn't have any exclusive games anymore. They did, and they still have console exclusive games in some context, but they're slowly getting rid of those because they realize, hey, maybe we can make more money if we put our games on more platforms, which is true. And saying that they aren't gamers at all. This is one of the reasons why I've come back from calling myself a lot of gamers, because it gets used in this context, and I don't like that. I still do like games. I still do appreciate the value that gaming has, and I still would technically call myself a gamer because, again, 1, it's in the branding name, and 2, it's because I like video games a lot, which is what the definition of a gamer is. But, like, feeling that you can manipulate someone into thinking that we're trying to use your arguments and your logic against you in order to make a point that you're kind of wrong about exclusives. But then we have both Darkborn and J-Dub kind of coming in with a little bit of a more accurate thing, which in some cases I would guess. We're saying that Phil Spencer told them to, and, well, the money, which I think J-Dub is probably more on the money with that, literally. But because Phil Spencer told them to implies that, like, Phil Spencer is somehow influential, despite the fact that all these PlayStation fanboys would basically have you believe that Phil is just a manipulative liar who basically doesn't have a good voice in the actual gaming community and doesn't speak for anyone ever in terms of their own company, even. With J-Dub actually saying, like, I think that J-Dub is more, again, accurate, where they're getting paid to quote-unquote demonize it, but they're getting paid to do journalistic practices anyway. They're also getting paid to push narratives of woke ideologism and stuff like that, or at least supposedly woke ideologism. Let me be clear on that. I don't believe that they are being, like, quote-unquote woke or whatnot, but they do push something, a little bit of an agenda there, but that's more of my personal opinion, not to be influenced by this video. Digital Dude here coming in with because their favorite company, Microsoft/Xbox, sucks ass at selling exclusives. They can't sell pussy on a troop train. I wanted to highlight this because I've never actually heard that turn of phrase of they can't sell this on a troop train, of they can't sell cats on a troop train. That to me is a very weird one. I don't get where the comparison of this comes from, but saying that, like, oh yeah, it sucks ass at selling exclusives. Well, no, it sucked ass at selling you the console back during the Xbox One, and they're still kind of feeling the effects today. Not because the games and stuff that they had were bad, just that, again, I need to really go into more in-depth on this and get that, like, top 10 video that I have in my brain out there in the world, because one of the entries is still that if you want to play offline, buy an Xbox 360. It's like, yes, sell your new console by bringing in and saying, go buy our old shit. Like, that's how you sell a new product, God damn it. It's not. That was sarcasm. Anyway, Video Game Fitness 64 here with a why is it no one can explain an exclusive is good for the consumer or gaming in general. Closest answer people get is, well, the games are optimized. Now, I would even argue that the games being quote-unquote optimized for the hardware isn't even really an argument, as, again, that only limits the amount of ways that you can experience the game. For example, technically speaking, Bloodborne is quote-unquote optimized to be able to be played at 30 FPS, but it hasn't received its quote-unquote optimization update, which it was being told it would have. Now, Sony has been cracking down on stuff like this, and we'll probably talk about that in a later video, maybe, but Bloodborne has been receiving, or at least some of the Bloodborne, like, mods and stuff have been receiving DMCA takedown notices and things like that, because apparently there's going to be some sort of state of play at some point. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I'll correct myself in this, if anything, probably in the comments or, like, in the description down below. But I would still argue that, again, they're not good for the consumer or anything. It just means that you have to go out and buy a different thing that you don't fucking want, which I think gaming is really the only place that you only have, because, again, with the example that I brought up before of, like, having specific limited run plushies or specific limited run cups or something like that, it's still a product that you want rather than, having to go to a specific place. And yeah, you might be like, oh, well, you have to go to a specific company for that. It's like, yes, you do, but you're still getting a product that you want. I don't want a PlayStation. I want the games. I don't need a PlayStation at all. There's the difference. Because up here we have Gameplay J with because most of them are not gamers. They're just gaming to make money. It's basically their job. Now, again, in some cases, it might be talking about journalists, sure, but if you're talking about content creators, sure. But saying, like, quote-unquote, they're not gamers, I would say that at least for the content creators, they are gamers. But if they're just for journalists, I would agree that they're not gamers, because Alyssa Mercante is still the pushing misinformation, at least in my opinion. If you haven't seen that video on Alyssa Mercante and her video on, I guess, quote unquote, the thing with gaming journalism in 2025, go and watch that one. It's actually a pretty interesting watch. I'll see if I can link it in the description. If not, I just search up Alyssa Merc on the channel. It should be around there. These next three is basically talking about how these are all dead and how competition is exclusivity, blah, blah, blah. You can kind of read through them themselves. I'll just talk over a little bit here. The last one, though, is the most interesting one, where it is the exclusives always created competition and gave platforms identity, in my view. Look at Nintendo. They should keep all their IPs exclusive forever. Now, while this is kind of true in the sense of they did have to do that back in the day, you don't necessarily have to do that now, because if you look again at the most popular games, even the most groundbreaking games with gameplay features, they are not exclusive to one platform. Call of Duty is huge and still makes a lot of fuck ton of money. There is Minecraft, which has made a lot of fuck ton of money. There is the only things that are like quote-unquote exclusives are Nintendo games, and those are only because those games are very wide in the way that they make their games. I think that if they were on other platforms, they could somehow reach essentially more people in a lot of ways. And they could actually be even more popular than they already are. That's just my opinion, but, it's whatever. And yeah, the last few in here are more of just random stuff, which I might just put into the random salt video at the end of the week or the end of the month, because quite honestly, that's all that I really wanted to talk about in this video, was just PlayStation overall. Like, PlayStation fanboys will continue to just baffle me with how much they just try to jump through hoops in this context. Not that any of that is, like, horrible or bad, or they're horrible or bad, because they're not bad people, at least not to me. I just think that overall, if you're trying to say that art should be kept inside for the people for that, is kind of dumb. It's strange, because the only way that I can really equate it to is if an exhibition is going from museum to museum, which even then you could argue that quote-unquote exclusivity to the museum, to those people, is you're paying for an experience, and an actual experience in a physical location with actual real-world implications and stuff. It's hard to compare the two because, again, even that comparison feels very disingenuous to what exclusives kind of are. And it's just really dumb in some cases. I don't know. Overall, that's all that I have to say on this. If we've learned anything today, is that PlayStation fanboys are very petty as shit, and quite honestly, I'm surprised that they're still around. But anyway, guys, if you like what it is that I do and want to support me in any other way, like, shape, or form, links down to everything in the description below. But your like and subscribe is always enough. Please, let's try to see if we can hit 1.5k subs, probably by the end of the year. Not sure if the growth stagnate because of that, but I do want to hit that number before the end of the year and maybe get monetized. But at the end of the day, I don't really think that this is anything more than just a petty squabble on the internet. If you like, again, my name is Campaign21. And a peace.
Hey man!